Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I found myself putting together yet another twin cam plate for one of our custom builds from the case up, and it brought up an interesting topic. When I disassembled this engine, I noticed quite a bit of, let's call it, frosting on the camshaft when I disassembled it. The individual had installed a camshaft in the bike quite some time ago, and there was quite a bit of accelerated wear to the camshaft and also to the rollers on the lifters. And it's not really anything that I see that's new. I see it quite a bit. But there's one common element that I see in all of those that experience that frosting or premature wear on both the cam lobes and the roller on the lifter or tappet, whatever you want to call it. There's one common denominator I see across all of them. Often people wonder, how could this happen? And they blame the camshaft. It's not always the camshaft's fault, and it's certainly not always the tappet or lifter's fault either. There's one small detail that should be taken into consideration when you're installing a camshaft into a cam plate, and I'm going to tell you about that today. So, are you installing your cams wrong? Maybe not. But you may also not be installing them as good as you could be. Stick around and I'll tell you about it. For you guys that have ever built an Evo, Evo bottom, nose cone type bottom end, Evo shovel head, Evo, that stuff, and you work your way back, or even in Sportsters, there's an element to installing the camshafts that is very important, and one of those is camshaft endplay. And if you guys went back and looked at a shovel head build for the curved bike and things like that, you'll see where I would install the gear case cover and with the camshaft in and check the endplay of that camshaft. And then as part of that, you also have to check the endplay of that breather gear, allowing somewhere around 10 thousandths, give or take. Not very much, but give or take some, to allow for thermal expansion and things like that. But regardless, that's one of those elements that made a nose cone, Evo, shovel, and even on, again, Sportsters and older stuff, that end play of that camshaft, breather gears, etc., and multiple camshafts in the Sportsters, that end play in those camshafts were important. So you had to measure them and install shims. Well, the same thing exists in your twin cam. And so here is a 07 and later twin cam plate that I'm installing here. Now, of course, you notice I've already installed the cams. It is a gear drive, and the gears are timed, that sort of thing. I like to assemble the plates before I slide them in and things like that. So anyway, so in play on that camshaft, one of the things that I have noticed, again, when I see the accelerated wear on these lobes and also the rollers on nearly every single one, when I go back and I check the end play of the front camshaft, I always find an excessive amount of end play. I say always. I mean, it's like 95% of the time I see that excessive end play on this front camshaft. Now, that you also, of course, twin cam, you have the second one here, but we have to keep in mind that the second one, and this is something that should always be checked when it's installed, but companies like Fueling S&S, whoever, and then with the gear drive set that goes on it, the gear on the rear cam is what determines the end play for the rear cam, okay? And these bushings that are in the cam plate are actually machined so that when you put the gear on there, that your end play is set by the gear that goes on the rear cam. And that end play should be somewhere around 10 thousandths of an inch. But when you do that, that also allows the front one, because there's nothing to retain it. What retains it is a washer and a snap ring, of course. With the gear holding the rear camshaft in place, that sets the end play for that rear one. You should always check it. Should be somewhere around 10 thousandths of an inch, again, to allow for thermal expansion. But then that leaves the front one, right? Well, on the front one, you have this washer. All right, you guys have seen it. Any of you that ever put a camshaft in? And if you look real closely, on the stock bikes, you look real closely, the numbers here, those are part numbers for that, but it also shows the thickness of the washer. So to give you a real world example on this particular engine itself, I removed the washer that came factory in that cam plate. And I removed that washer, and it measures, I don't know if you can see that, 120 thousandths of an inch. That measurement's actually correct. Oddly enough, the washer that I ended up using in here was 110 thousandths of an inch. So what does that mean? For you DIY guys that are doing this stuff yourself in your garage at home, more than likely you're buying a new cam plate, you're buying a new cam, and you're assembling it. But we have to remember there are manufacturing tolerances with every component. So when that camshaft's installed in that plate, it's a new camshaft. Then you're installing a new cam plate where that, in S&S's cases anyway, that bronze bushing has been machined, everything else, and you put that together and you put the clip on it. There's an end play to that camshaft that should be checked. So how do you check it? It's actually quite simple. When you look on the back side of the cam, right here where it makes the cam plate, there's a flange that butts up against the back of the plate and the bushing that's there. It enables you to slide a feeler gauge down in there and see if you have any end play. This one, in fact, I've already filled it with assembly lube and such, so you're not hearing a click, but that checking it dry, because it's assembled, checked dry, disassembled, lubricated with assembly oils, and then reinstalled. That assembly oil is very thick, so it takes up quite a bit of room in there. But you slide your feeler gauge in here on the back side of the plate with that flange on that camshaft. And that's an important measurement. I had already checked this one and torqued this one down and found, in fact, it had about 10 thousandths in play there. And I wanted to match that front cam up to that as well. And in order for me to do that, I had to go from a 120 thousandths thick washer that came in that bike originally and changed it to 110. Did the clip still go on? Yes, it did, but the camshaft was very tight in there and really did not allow room for thermal expansion. And at some point, if it got hot enough, it could actually kind of put the cam, I don't want to say in a bind, but at least add some resistance to it and then force, let's comically call it self-clearancing. I'm not a fan of self-clearancing. So this is one of those elements that should be checked every time you install a camshaft. Check that end play. Things need to work, things need to move, and nothing needs to have really an interference fit, especially if it's a rotating part or piece. That's very important. So there's some compounding here that we have to think about. If that gap is too large and it allows that camshaft to move a lot. Now, I had mentioned before, when I see camshafts that have seen that accelerated wear on the lobes and on the rollers on the tappet/lifters, I've seen excessive end play, 30, 40, 50 thou, where that front cam is just flopping around all over the place. And so I have to believe that one has everything to do with the other. For the ones I take apart, I have not seen that. That camshaft has about 10 to 15 thousandths end play in it. The other element that's important here is also the gear alignment. We're building high precision engines here. No, 10 thousandths of an inch, 20 thousandths, 20 thousandths, all that stuff is not that much. But we have to remember what kind of RPMs we're running here. That gear alignment for even wear and everything else is critically important. So this is one of those elements. So again, you DIY guys, give some serious consideration. If you're installing a camshaft in your own garage, order a multitude of these. Or if you don't want to order a multitude, assemble your cam plate. And once you assemble it, then have a look, take a measure, and see what size spacer you would need to allow you about a 10 thousandths end play. Now, keep in mind, the 06 and back, the cams are pressed in, and then, of course, with the 07 and later, they float inside that bushing there. So it's obviously far more critical on the 07 and later plates that do not have bearings, mechanical bearings in the plate, 07 and later, So it's far more critical on these that do not have those mechanical bearings because the camshafts are not pressed in. Regardless, gear alignment is still an issue even on the earlier ones, and it's something you should take into consideration. So I hope this little PSA might help you guys out. And it's not always the camshaft's fault. It's not always the roller on the tappet/lifter's fault either. Most of the time, when I see that massive accelerated wear, I can see that camshaft on them later model bikes rocking back and forth, 40, 50, 60 thousandths. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, that's your little tech tip. Hope you guys are doing well. There's some nasty storms getting to roll through here this afternoon. I've already had power flickering on and off, so running into anything in the machine shop today is not really a wise idea. So we're working with hand tools today and assembling bottom ends and cam chests and that sort of thing. So guys, thanks again for watching. If you think I've earned your subscription and you haven't subscribed already, click that button if you don't mind. Subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we post a video. And to our members, thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for being part of this family that we have here. And if you are a member and you haven't, be sure to go to the community tab and look at all the members only videos. A lot of times I've just propped up a camera in the past and let you guys watch how I machine things and all this kind of stuff, bit of behind the scenes sort of thing. So take a look at that if you're a member and you haven't watched those videos. But other than that, guys, I'm going to get back on it, get rocking and rolling and get these bikes wrapped up. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, subbing, being a member, and always for your continued support, positive comments, and all that sort of thing. You guys take care of yourselves and each other. Have a good one.